I give the call to the member for Pascoe Vale.
Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I too rise to support the Crime Amendment Retail, Fast Food, Hospitality and Transport Worker Harm Bill of 2025. And I, of course, rise to support this bill in my capacity as a State Labor member for Pascoe Vale, Coburg and Brunswick West, which actually is home to many, many workers across all these critical sectors. I support it in my capacity as someone who also started my work and career journey working for many years in the hospitality, restaurant and cafe sector, particularly along Lygon Street in Carlton, where I definitely did have my fair share of experiences, a lot of good ones and some not so good ones. And as someone, of course, I'm proud to be supporting this bill as a long-time Transport Workers Union member, TWU member, whose frontline workers continue to serve and carry our community across the state and the country. Because our customer-facing workers in retail, hospitality and fast food and passenger transport sectors all played the essential role in keeping our economy running, served and cared for. And this was particularly made clear during the COVID-19 pandemic when customer-facing workers continued to diligently perform their duties during a time of great uncertainty. Because without our customer-facing workers, the reality is our economy and community stops. From those that stack our supermarket shelves and serve on the checkouts, those staff at the local service station or bakery who are working at all hours, those who serve our takeaway or sit-down breakfast, brunches, lunches or dinners, or serve our favourite coffee order, those who help us find the right outfit for work, school or that night out at the shops, those who drive our taxis and our Ubers, and those on our trains, trams and buses, to those who check us in for that much-needed family holiday at the airport or place our bags in the overhead luggage, to those who physically transport and deliver those goods and services to help our places of business, government, retail precincts, schools, hospitals, places of entertainment and more to function, and to those who increasingly courier our home grocery shopping and online orders to home. The reality is our customer-facing workers will only continue to play an increasingly important role over the coming years, and they deserve our respect, courtesy and support. And the economic value of these sectors and these workers is significant, Acting Speaker. 360,000 jobs in Victoria, nearly 10% of our total employment is related to retail. And that's expected to grow by a further 111,200 jobs by 2034. And according to Department of Jobs and Regions, the economic dashboard for November 2025 found that accommodation food services continue to remain the fastest growing job sector, 20% growth over the last year. In terms of local businesses and workers for Marybeck, our retail businesses make up 7.1% of our local businesses, 1,774 shops. In terms of transport, they're 13% of our local businesses, 2,200 in the transport sector. In terms of retail workers, they make up 8% of the local workforce, 7,500 employed in retail. In terms of transport workers, there's 4,000 local residents, 4.2% of our local workforce. But we know as jobs have grown across the sector, abuse towards retail and customer-facing employees has grown. The government's heard deeply distressing first-hand accounts from retail, hospitality, fast food and passenger transport workers across Victoria who suffered abuse and violence in their workplace, and this is unacceptable. Everyone has the right to be safe and respected at work. This is confirmed by the data with the Australian Retailers Association reporting some 800,000 retail crime incidents across Australia last year. 70% of retail report increase in customer theft. 51% of retailers experience physical abuse monthly or more often. 87% of retail workers report experiencing verbal abuse, and most retail workers are women, with a third of them under the age of 24 years of age. Violent and threatening behaviour towards passenger transport workers is also an ongoing issue. Between January and August 2023, there were 381 reports of assault against a taxi driver in Melbourne compared to 319 in the same period in 2022. And this offending is harmful to those workers, their families and the wider community. That's why we're moving this bill that seeks to prevent assaults, threats and abuse against customer-facing workers across those sectors of hospitality, fast food, passenger transport and retail. And these reforms implement the government's commitment to give vulnerable customer-facing workers greater protections against assault, threats and abuse. It delivers on the commitment made by the Premier to introduce a bill by the end of 2025, and the bill contains 3 new offences to address violence and aggression towards workers, 1 indictable offence and 2 summary offences. First, an amendment to the Crimes Act of 1958 for a new indictable offence of assaulting and threatening to assault an applicable customer-facing worker. The bill amends the Summary Offences Act of 1966 with two new summary offences: of summary offence of assaulting an applicable customer-facing worker in connection with the worker's duties, and a summary offence of using without lawful excuse language that is profane, indecent, obscene, threatening, abusive or insulting, otherwise engaging in conduct that is threatening, indecent, offensive or insulting manner towards an applicable customer-facing workers in connection to their duties. And both summary offences have a maximum sentence of 6 months imprisonment. This is higher than for the equivalent general offences. The new indictable assault offence distinguishes itself from the existing general assault offence in Section 31 of the Crimes Act of 1958, as it does not contain the requirement that accused person intended to commit an indictable offence. This means that the new offence will apply to a greater range of conduct than the general indictable assault offence, and the maximum sentence of 5 years imprisonment is consistent with the maximum sentence for other indictable assault offences, including assault of an emergency or custodial worker. In relation to who is protected by this legislation, the worker cohort is defined broadly to include all workers that perform customer-facing duties for retail or hospitality operators, workers who perform customer-facing duties for landlords or managers of retail shopping centre, such as cleaners in food court or security guards, are also protected by these offences, including contractors, including labour hire, who will also be protected. The worker cohort also includes all customer-facing workers working for or as a passenger transport service provider, and this includes commercial passenger vehicle and public transport drivers, operators, workers located at transport premises such as bus stations, tram stops and train stations. Taxi and rideshare services are included in this definition, and the bill ensures that the offences will apply to acts of violence, abuse, intimidation connected to an event or action that took place while the worker was performing their duties, even if the act occurs when the worker is no longer at the workplace, because, for example, if a person is refused service and then waits for a worker to complete their shift to then assault or abuse them, the new offences will also apply. The bill also amends the Crimes Act to ensure ram raiding is captured by the serious offence of aggravated burglary. There has been a growing concern from the community regarding ram raid conduct where offenders use a vehicle to forcibly enter a building to facilitate theft or criminal damage. This can deeply traumatise retail workers in particular, whether they are in the store or not at the time of the offence. And this bill will amend the existing offence of aggravated burglary in the Crimes Act to capture this conduct. And the amendment applies to all buildings, not just retail premises, and will ensure that aggravated burglary offence with a maximum 25-year penalty can apply to ram raids. We know from industry and unions that the lead up to Christmas is a time when violence towards customer-facing workers increases, and this bill provides that worker harm offences will commence the day after royal assent, with the aim that the offences can protect workers at this time of heightened risk during and in the lead up to and throughout the Christmas period. Along with these measures, we're also introducing new workplace protection orders. Workers' union representatives and business who are all on the front line of workplace crime have called for workplace protection orders to force threatening and violent customers out of the store. That's why we'll introduce new laws to establish workplace protection orders as the next step in our response to retail crime. Under such orders, if you are violent to retail workers, you can be banned from that workplace. Currently, only ACT has those orders in place, and different types of models are being developed interstate. These models have the same motive: keep a violent, threatening person away from the premises and a precinct. Victoria will consult with police, unions and industry and look interstate and overseas to review what models are working, building on the work of the Worker Protection Consultation Group and legislation to be introduced there from April 2026. And above all, we want a model that's going to do the job. And the bill has been informed in close consultation with that Worker Protection Consultation Group comprising of Victoria Police, the Office of Public Prosecutions, union, industry and representatives. Particularly unions I want to shout out to is the SDA, the Shop Distributor and Allied Employees Association Union, the SDA, Transport Workers Union, the TWU, the Rail, Tram and Bus Union, RTBU, and many others from the union and employer sector. Michael Donovan, the branch secretary of the SDA, has said, and I quote, "The Retail Workers Union welcomes the Victorian Government's commitment to increase penalties and to criminalise attacks on frontline retail and fast food workers as a first step to address customer aggression and violence." TWU Director of Organising Sam Lynch also praised the bill, saying, and I quote, "Union members fought hard for this win under the Allen Labor Government's new laws. Transport workers will get the protection and respect they deserve. Bus, taxi, rideshare drivers who often face the brunt of public aggression will be safeguarded by tougher penalties to reinforce the important role they play in our community." And of course, this will also help support local safety outcomes through our local retail precinct. On the 11th of February this year, the Central Coburg Business Association wrote to me about these very issues, and they said, and I quote, "On the 30th of January 25, our association co-hosted a safety information night in collaboration with Marybeck City Council, supported by Brunswick Police Station, with strong attendance from local businesses. Addressing safety concerns in Coburg requires an approach that includes both immediate interventions and long-term structural solutions, including via greater and more visible presence through Central Coburg. would serve as a deterrent to crime and antisocial behaviour, and consideration should be given to dedicated local policing patrols, high traffic areas such as Victoria Street Mall, surrounding shopping precincts on Sydney Road, Munro Street, Bell Street and the Central Coburg Hub. And I'm very delighted to say that along with this bill, we have been taking action to make Central Coburg safer, including through the dedicated local operation priority by Victoria Police. We've strengthened the bail laws, we've cracked down on dangerous and illegal weapons and invested in those services, welfare and supports to help people in need.